Maggie decided to write a story based on her grandmother's experience of the Great Sparrow Campaign in 1958. She was interested in it because the senseless slaughter of over 1 billion sparrows in one day reminded her of an analogous situation that happened recently with killing animals during the coronavirus pandemic. Maggie's already written a chapter of her grandmother's life from a third-person point of view, and I coached her through the process. She ended up receiving a National Gold Medal from Scholastic Art and Writing Awards. Now she's thinking of writing an entire book-length project, either as a novel or a collection of short stories. She hasn't decided yet. My first assignment for Maggie was coming up with interview questions and putting them in order. While there is some overlap with writing interview questions for investigative journalism, the focus on questions for getting the material for a short story should be rather on aiding the interviewee to recover memories rather than analyzing their lives. The writer should be giving them questions that will help them reconstruct details about setting, dialogue, and what characters look like. To that end, Maggie should be helping them not just with the individual questions, but with the way they are ordered.
The president basically ordered everyone to kill the sparrows because they were really annoying and eating everyone's food. So like people banged pots and made lots of noises, and like if the sparrows landed on the ground, they would like immediately kill them because that's what the president ordered, and like he said, just kill them all if they're like eating all the food and stuff. But then they killed like 2 billion sparrows, and people would just bang pots for hours and like wave flags around so that the sparrows couldn't land, and then they died from exhaustion. And then after all these sparrows were killed, the insects started to grow because there were no sparrows around to kill them or like eat them. So then the insects started to like grow, the population started to grow, and then there were more diseases and stuff, and then the president saw that he made a huge mistake.
That you're getting at some of the factual, easy things initially. So it's just not as guided in the beginning. So what's one of the first things that you remember from that day? Like, do you remember where you woke up in the morning, or what your bed was like, or anything that can give you a sense of how that day started? So that in that sense, it's more factual and less abstract, as opposed to why do you think Chairman Mao did this, which is abstract about a whole big picture. You might ask the person something and it does not unlock the memory for them. So they might give you an answer that's just like short, and it might not be on purpose, but it comes out that way because they don't get all the details, and so you have to help them. So you want to start with really easy things to try, and also just kind of factual type of things as opposed to analytical things. So did they believe in him? Did they think it was a stupid policy? Those are more analytical questions. They're easier to answer after you have helped the person set the scenario, set up the story, remember all the things that happened, remember the conversations that they had. And the first thing that you recall, it kind of leaves it open for them to recall anything, because the way memory works, it can be something completely random. I remember waking up that morning and my left foot felt numb. Because that's, how random it is and how capricious it is. But if they can just sort of lock into something concrete like that, like I remember, okay, where were you? And then you can help them picture what the scenario was. Like, where were you? Oh, I was sleeping in my mom's room that night because I had a nightmare. Of a dream might not come to the surface if you start with something. Why did Chairman Mao decide to do it? Which is a completely sort of cognitive, analytical question. Remind the person of specific people and ask them if she remembers words that they said or conversations between, say, your mom and what did you say to them? When you first time you ever heard about this Sparrow campaign, do you remember what your thoughts were or the situation that you were in? Did you see it on a poster somewhere or did you hear it from a neighbor? And what did you say? So you're helping to set up the memory, to try to think of what context was it in? Was it like a sign on a bus, or was it a conversation that was overheard, or did you see it in the newspaper, or was it like the neighbor woman that you hated that mentioned it? So that again will bring more of a storyline with it as opposed to kind of just a one sentence response. You don't want to dictate the memory. It should be framed like as a question. So if you're telling somebody all the neighbors were there, you might be corroborating an actually some quote fact that's not really a fact. It might not be true. So ask her, what were all the neighbors present, or did some not participate? Do you remember who was there? Question as, did it seem like the people you knew believed that this was a worthwhile policy? And then did some people, do you have any visual memory? You can also ask too, so that you can get kind of a picture like, oh yeah, I remember it was by this magnolia tree. I remember that because there was a chair under it and it was in blossoms. The flowers looked like this. And that way, when you get to the writing, you don't have to just fabricate this setting and what it looked like and imagine it, but you've actually gotten the details. Like there was as many of those visual details as you can get from them. Question, the way you're asking it, do you find it very similar to the current COVID-19 cases? That's a leading question, pushing the person to say, yeah, it's really similar. Do you see any similarities with the zero COVID policy in China today? All right. So you're leaving it open for them